Today we're going to be tying a Game Changer Ned rig fly. Kind of imitates a worm for smallmouth bass, but also can be a streamer for trout and even some saltwater stuff. First thing we're doing is putting the small shank into the vise, and then we're going to attach our thread. This is a 9mm shank, and we're using Semperfly NanoSilk in a 6/0 or 100 denier, and tighten that gap, filling that gap on the shank, using my Renome scissors, using the push-pull with the NanoSilk. You can cut your thread pretty easily. A lot of people say the thread is pretty strong and dull scissors, but if you use the push-pull technique, then you don't have any issues with that at all. Next, we're going to do the tail on this fly, and the tail, we want it to float up so when the fly's down, and you can do a couple different styles of tails. I'm using Semperfli double-decker foam in a 5mm here. You can have a bigger tail, big paddle tail if you want, or even a long skinny tail. All of them work. I do them in different colors. You can just play with it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this foam on the side towards me just a little bit, and using loose wraps I'm going to bind this foam down tighter and tighter, coming back to the loop on the hook, and you can see how much tighter we get it down here. And now this will not go anywhere. And for the body, today I'm using the holographic Fleck Chenille in the copper Fleck, and this is Danica color. It's a pretty good color. There's a variety of different colors that you can get it in, so there's a whole variety of different colors. You can also use a Fry Chenille or a Mop Chenille or Pearl Chenille. There's several different types of products that you can use. And so I made some bare, the core, I made it bare on the inside, so I have the core I'm tying down, not the material, so that it doesn't pull out. And then I advance my thread back up behind the eye of the shank. And so now I'm going to wrap this, stroking the fibers back, create a little body here. And so then I'll come up here, hold this with my dominant hand. I'll come with my non-dominant hand and bring the thread behind it twice, once into the front, and that is what a locking wrap. So then I'll come in here with my scissors and just trim that out. And I just go ahead and prep my chenille for the next stage, the next shank. And I'll finish binding that down, flatten my thread, and then I will whip finish. A good 3 or 4 turn whip finish. Make sure I seat that knot very good. And then again, I come in here with my scissors and just push-pull technique on there. And then I'll come with a 15mm shank and put it into the eye of the previous shank, and then I will move back there, and then I will reattach my thread. Then I'll tie in my chenille. Stroke those fibers back every wrap. Using touching turns, I'm just palmering the chenille up right behind the eye, and then again I'll grab with my non-dominant hand, 2 wraps behind, 1 in the front, and that will lock that in place. And then I pull those fibers back and build a little head there and make sure those are locked down good and secure. Flatten my thread again. Oops. Do that again. Make sure that knot is seated. And then I'll come with my second 15mm shank. Same thing, I'll pull that back. Attach the shank, reattach my thread. You always want to make sure and close that gap on your shanks so you have no problems. And then I'll come down, tie that in again on the side of the shank towards me. Advance my thread up behind the eye. And again, I will wrap and stroke those fibers back as I go. And you can make these as big, as small as you want. Now I'm going to use some, this is Berkley 15-pound coated wire. And so that's the tail section of the fly right there. And then I'm going to come in here. You can use a Gamakatsu B10S. This is in Umpqua X series jig hook, the XS506H. It has medium dumbbell eyes on it. I'll reattach my thread behind the dumbbell eyes, and then I will bring my, with 2 or 3 loose wraps of thread on here, I'll set my wire and make sure that it's sitting right on top of the hook shank, and I'll advance the thread back to right above the barb. And bring my, and I'm using tight wraps with this NanoSilk. You can put quite a bit of pressure on it. And then I'm going to take the remaining wire and I'm going to wrap around the dumbbell eye on each side, and then I'm going to bring the rest of the wire back along the side of the hook shank, and using some flush cutters, go in there and trim that wire out. You can apply super glue here and then bind this down, but I have never had one pull out, so that's up to you. And again, I'm coming up here and just binding that wire down good and tight. So now I will reattach my Fleck Chenille, and I've done these in different tones. I've even spun some together like a complex twist. That's part of the fun of fly tying, is just making stuff up. And again, I'm stroking each one of those fibers back. You could even use a bigger chenille on the body, depending on the profile that you're going for. And I want to build a couple extra wraps up behind these dumbbell eyes. Really pull that material tight. Again, non-dominant hand, 2 wraps behind, 1 wrap in front. Give it a good cinch. Make sure it's tight in there well. Cut that off. Build that up. Give it a really good stretch. And one thing that a lot of people do when they're really playing torque on thread or doing something is they turn their thread sideways, or their bobbin sideways like this, and pull. That creates a pinch point. You don't want that. If you want to put tension on something, pull straight. That's the maximum tension of that thread, or the maximum strength of that thread. So then I come back forward in front of the dumbbell eyes, and I'm going to whip finish in front of those. I typically like to put 2 whip finishes on the heads. And that is the completed fly. So when this is swimming, it's going to be swimming like this, and this tail is going to float up. Now a person could probably put a hook up in here too if they wished, but that's the completed fly right there. A Game Changer Ned rig. Typically I fish it on a sink tip line, so that creates a belly underneath in there, and the fly will come down, and that tail will sit there. And if it's clear enough water, then you can actually use this as a sider and watch when the bass will come take that, or even the trout. So, but that's typically how I fish it. So and then also jigging it back as well. Again, different color combinations. Here's a purple one. Here's one with a mop chenille body, the different style tail, and the Fleck chenille up front. Here's a large one that has our Fry Chenille that you can use. This is the holographic copper Fleck chenille in purple. Fry Chenille is another good one that you can use. Pearl Chenille. There we go, it's in focus. We also make a Game Changer kit that a person could use for bigger ones. So that's it.